This weekend, Nebraska is having their annual Elite Junior Day recruiting weekend. We're going to dive into everyone that has been confirmed to be visiting Nebraska because this is a star-studded list. Hello, Husker Nation, and welcome in to another edition of the Cornhusker Huddle. As always, I am your host, Brian Moore. Today, we're going to dive into all the recruits Nebraska is bringing in for their Elite Junior Day recruiting weekend. Right now, the class of 2026 currently sits at 3 commits. They're ranked 32nd nationally, which I don't worry about. It's only January 30th. They're 12th in the conference, which again, not too worried about. We got a long time till signing day. But this weekend is what sets you up for success. This weekend, you may have guys that commit on the spot. You may have guys that commit in June. You may have guys on this recruiting visit that don't commit until signing day next year, or later this year, I should say. But this is where it all starts. This is where you sell them. This is where you lock it in. This is where you want to be. If it takes 6 months, 8 months, fine. If it takes 6 hours, fine. But it all starts this weekend. Nebraska has not completely, but they've certainly reset the board in terms of their offensive line. Hudson Parliament committed to Iowa, who was probably their 1B on their board for offensive tackle. Jackson Cantwell is the 1A. I don't want to get your hopes up. Nebraska's not getting Jackson Cantwell. I don't think so, at least. He's being represented by super NFL agent Drew Rosenhaus. He's going to ask for $1.5 to $2.5 million a year. And he's the number one overall player in the country per on 3. He's the number one offensive tackle, obviously. He's got every major school, and I wouldn't be shocked if a school pays him more than $2.5 million a year. He's probably going to be a first-round draft pick in 3 or 4 years after he gets to college. I'd say Nebraska has like a 10% chance to get him back for a visit. And if they do get him back for that visit, our chances of landing him go up. He has ties to Nebraska, but I don't think Nebraska stands a chance at this point. They were fighting early, and maybe if Nebraska has a great season next year and they win 9 or 10 games, maybe that there's a late flip like we saw with Dawson Merritt or even Dylan Raiola. But Nebraska's got to start winning in order to land these big time prospects. Dylan Raiola would not be a Husker if his dad's name wasn't on the stadium, if his uncle wasn't coaching the O-line. Nebraska has to start winning to land guys like Jackson Cantwell. So Nebraska's reset their offensive line board. We'll dive into who's visiting from the offensive line. They've also kind of reset their tight end room. That's not a huge surprise. I think Dana Holgorsen is going to prefer guys that are like way more athletic than what they have right now. Outside of Carter and Heinrich, your tight ends aren't athletic. So they're going to reset that board. We'll go over the guys visiting. And then the wide receiver board has been reset a little bit as well. That's not a surprise. You're changing offensive scheme, so you're going to see your tight end room change, your wide receiver room change, especially with Da'Keel Shorts too. So you have a new wide receiver coach and a new OC. It's not a surprise that those two rooms are changing a little bit. The one person everyone's curious about, we'll spend a few minutes on, and then we'll get to the high school players, is Notre Dame offensive guard Rocco Spindler. Started 23 games at Notre Dame. He committed no penalties last season, and his PFF grade was well over a 70. So he is an elite interior offensive lineman. He visited Nebraska on Tuesday and Wednesday. He's already in the student directory, which is pretty standard practice when you're up against a deadline like that. Nebraska's enrollment deadline was the 28th. So it's standard practice to get him in the directory so that if he decides to come to Nebraska, he's ready to roll. Nebraska's received some predictions or RPMs or crystal balls or whatever for him to commit to Nebraska. Things can change quick, though. Michigan is going to do everything they can to get him on a visit this weekend. Nebraska has to do everything they can to not let that happen. If that visit doesn't happen, I'd say he's coming to Nebraska. If that visit happens, I would put it like 50-50. I think it's really down to Nebraska and Michigan. He did visit Indiana. I don't think Indiana's really a player. I'm fairly confident it's Nebraska and Michigan. So I would guess that if that visit happens, it's 50-50. If that visit doesn't happen, he's probably going to be a Husker. So on to the 2026 class. Like we said at the top, Nebraska has 3 commitments. One of them being defensive back CJ, and I'm going to butcher your last name, CJ. I apologize in advance. I'm guessing it's pronounced Bruno. He's a 3-star on all services. But again, this is a guy that is going to rise through the rankings. I wouldn't be shocked by this time next year if he is a high 4-star, if he's a top 200 recruit nationally. He's got great size for a corner, 6'1", 175. He's already starting to really gain national attention. Other than Nebraska, he has offers from Tennessee. He just got offered by Oklahoma. So he's a guy that is going to rise throughout the next year or so. Can Nebraska hold on to him? That'll be the question. Dayton Raiola is your quarterback for the class of 2026. He's a mid 3-star on all the major services, and that's meaning 247 on 3 and rivals. He's 6'1", he's 210 pounds. He's a little more mobile than Dylan, but he's not a guy that's going to be a runner. His rushing stats were not even good or even okay this past season. And that's partially because Buford, Georgia has great running backs, and they're a big run team. But he's got a huge arm, and that's evident by this clip here. It's a monster throw, an absolutely monster throw. He's got a huge arm, just like his brother. The thing with Dayton is he's been Dylan's backup like his whole career. So he didn't get his first varsity start until this past season as a junior. And typically with these higher end quarterbacks, they're starting as a sophomore, a varsity. But you got to consider he was sitting behind his brother Dylan, who was the number 1 quarterback in the 2023 class, right? So in his first varsity season, he threw for about 2,000 yards. It was 1,953 yards. He had a 57% completion percentage, which isn't great. But the big stat here is his touchdown to interception ratio. 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He takes care of the ball. He doesn't make a lot of risk or doesn't take a lot of risk in his throws. He could improve his completion percentage, but I'm not going to worry about that as a first-year starter. Plus, I think 1 or 2 of his games were in complete, torrential downpours, so that obviously affects that number. He got substantially better as the year went on. Keep in mind, Buford plays one of the toughest schedules nationally every year. Buford is also one of the top 10 teams in the country every year. So we'll check back in a year from now. And we're going to look at these stats. 1,900 yards, 57 completion percentage, and 19 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. What does he do as a senior? He's got a season under his belt. What do these numbers look like? And then at wide receiver, Nebraska has Devon Bonwell White. He is a 3-star on all the services. He's a wide receiver from South Dakota. Good size. He's 6'2", 190 pounds. He's got all your local Big 10, Big 12 offers. The one thing with Devon, he had a major season-ending knee injury last year. How does he recover from that season-ending injury? So on to the visitors. Who's visiting Nebraska this weekend? Well, you have your quarterback in town, Dayton Raiola. CJ and Devon are not going to be in town, but your quarterback is, which is huge. Nebraska has class of 2027 4-star running back Noah Roberts coming in for a visit. He's 6'1", 190 pounds, and he's from a powerhouse high school in Chandler, Arizona. Basha High School, which you may be familiar with. They played Millard South this past season in the season opener. His early offers are Nebraska, Arizona State, Ohio State, Arizona. So he's got a legit offer list as a true sophomore. And in that sophomore season, he had 1,400 yards rushing. He averaged 7 yards per carry. And he had 19 touchdowns. Insane. And we know Dana Holgerson likes backs that can catch the ball. Well, 400 yards receiving almost and 5 touchdowns. Stellar season for a sophomore. They're also bringing in class of 2027 running back Jeremiah Stonewall, 6 foot, 185. Early offers right now are just Nebraska and I think Michigan State. He's not ranked, I believe, but we'll post it up in this area. So he's visiting this weekend as well. At wide receiver, they're bringing in Ryan Mosley. He is a 3-star. Don't worry about that 3-star. He'll be a 4-star by the time everything's said and done. He's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, and these are his junior stats. Check this out. 55 receptions, 850 yards, 12 touchdowns. Oh, look at his offer list. Oh, he's just a 3-star though, right? Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Clemson. This guy has big time SEC and Big Ten offers. That 3-star is going to be a 4-star by this time next season. They're also bringing in Jabari Brady, another big time receiver. Consensus 4-star, top 130 nationally. Rivals has him 81st overall. On3 has him 123rd overall. 247 has him 68th overall. He's 6'2", 190, big physical receiver. Here's his junior stats. 70 receptions, 1,392 yards, and 10 touchdowns. This guy is a freak. Nebraska is going to swing big early for some recruits. And getting these two in this weekend for a visit is huge. If you can lock up at least one of these guys, you're doing good. If you can somehow get both, oh boy. That wide receiver room is going to be insane. At tight end, Nebraska's bringing in 2026 recruit Lincoln Watkins. Rivals does have him as a 4-star. On3 and 247 have him as a 3-star. He's 6'4", he's 230 pounds. The one thing about his offer list is it's kind of odd. It's like he's got some big time offers, and he's got some like these random lower offers, and maybe those are just the schools that came in early. So I wonder how many of these big time offers are committable, because he's got like Penn State, Miami, Oregon, Michigan, Notre Dame. So he has some legit big time offers. How many of those, like if he called Oregon right now and said, hey, I want to be a Duck, would they accept his commitment? I don't know. I don't know a ton about Lincoln Watkins. I know Nebraska's recently been pushing for him. So getting him in this weekend is huge. The guys that are visiting this weekend are like the top players on their board. So obviously Nebraska is very high on Lincoln Watkins. Also, his first name is Lincoln. He should be a Husker. They're also bringing in Luke Sorensen. He's not rated, but he's got a pretty solid offer list. Same size as Lincoln Watkins, 6'4", 230 pounds. Cal, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Florida, Ole Miss, some of his early offers. So pretty good offer list. The fact that he's not ranked isn't really a concern for me at all. I look at the offers, and those typically tell me how good that prospect truly is. In the position we care about the most, offensive line, and in particular, offensive tackle. Like we said, Nebraska has reset their board because Hudson Parliament committed to Iowa, and Jackson Cantwell's probably not going to be a Husker. However, we have a consensus 4-star, top 150 recruit visiting this weekend. He's an offensive tackle. He's a return visitor. He visited for the Wisconsin game last year. He's ranked number 39 overall on3 and 137th on 247. Consensus 4-star Kelvin Obo. Probably butchered your last name, but that's how I'm guessing it's pronounced. Is visiting this weekend. Probably my favorite of the offensive linemen that are visiting this weekend is, I'm going to butcher his name, and I'm going to apologize now. Claude Mapuma? That's my guess. I apologize if it's wrong. He's a 3 or 4-star depending on your service. 4-star on 3, and they're the highest on him actually. And then 247 and Rivals have him as a 3-star. But again, we look at offers right now, not necessarily the ranking. However, on 3, number 31 nationally. On 3 is very high. He's a huge offensive lineman, too. 6'8" and 305 pounds. True offensive tackle. Early offers are from Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, Florida State, Miami, Iowa, who is like offensive line U, Mizzou. So big time or pretty good offer list. I think On3 is right. And I'm not a huge fan of their ranking system, but I've watched this dude's film. And if you guys want film reviews and all that stuff, let me know in your comments. Which of these players would you like a film review on? I will gladly do film reviews. But I've watched this dude's film. He's a freak. 247 and Rivals are going to have him as a high 4-star when everything is said and done. Gregory Patrick's also coming in for a visit, another consensus 4-star, and he's a legacy. His uncle was an offensive lineman at Nebraska. Rivals has him at 220th nationally. On3 has him 91st nationally, and 247 has him at 216th nationally. I think he's probably leaning towards Michigan State. He's from Michigan. I think he might be even leaning towards Notre Dame. I think Nebraska is third on his list. But getting him this weekend is huge, and he's a return visitor, which is huge. Nebraska can make up a lot of ground this weekend. Gregory Patrick would be a bookend left tackle or right tackle. He's huge. Big time recruit. Nebraska needs to do what they can to land really at least two of the last three guys we've talked about, Kelvin, Claude, and Gregory Patrick. They need to land at least two of these three. They're bringing in Rex Waterman as well. He's an offensive tackle, maybe an offensive guard. He's 6'5", 285 pounds. Early offers are like Nebraska, Duke, Arizona, Sacramento State, and San Diego State. He did say in an interview recently that Michigan and USC have been visiting him at his school. They haven't offered yet, but there's someone they're keeping tabs on. I think Nebraska's bringing him in to keep him warm. He's probably on their board like second or third behind the guys we've already talked about. I think they're bringing him to keep him warm because if they miss on all three of these guys, we're going to have a huge problem. They've got to land two of the three that we talked about, Kelvin, Claude, or Gregory. They have to. Their offensive tackle room is so thin right now. They're also bringing in a 2027 offensive tackle. Local product from Millard West to Matt Erickson. Right now, he's not ranked. I'm not worried about that. He's only a sophomore. He's class of 2027. He's a ways away. But he's 6'7". He's 285 pounds. Nebraska is his only offer right now. We can do this video this time next year when Nebraska's having their junior day visit again. And I would put money on it that Matt Erickson is going to be a 4-star. I would put money on it that he's going to be at worst a top 300 national recruit and at best top 150. Maybe we'll call it top 200 at best. He's a big time tackle prospect, but he's a ways away. At defensive line, Nebraska is bringing in a big time defensive tackle. Big time. He's 6'5". He's 290 pounds. On3 and Rivals have him as a 3-star. 247 has him as a 4-star. On3 has him as an industry rated 4-star though, which is like a collection of all the recruiting services averages, and that makes him an industry 4-star. Valden Stone. He's coming to Nebraska this weekend instead of Alabama. He mainly has offers from SEC schools, Oklahoma, LSU, Auburn, Florida, etc. Bama. The interesting thing here is Valden was born in Sweden. He's of Cameroon descent. He grew up playing soccer and also participates in taekwondo and jiu-jitsu. He played his junior year of football in Virginia. Nebraska also had a former defensive tackle that was like 6'5", maybe a little shorter, but about 290, 300 pounds that grew up playing soccer in Ndamukong Suh. Not saying this guy's going to be in Ndamukong Suh, but just some good comparisons there. I would not be shocked if Stone is a consensus 4-star on all three major recruiting services by August or whenever they do their re-rankings. He's a big time defensive tackle. At defensive end, Nebraska is bringing in Mikhail Blight, another consensus 4-star recruit. We've talked about a handful of consensus 4-star recruits. On 3 has him ranked 105th nationally. 247, 197th nationally. And Rivals at 135th nationally. Defensive end at 6'5", 230 pounds. Offer list is phenomenal. Notre Dame, Oregon, Michigan, Miami, Tennessee, etc. I mean, he's got everybody after it. Getting him in this weekend is major. Guess what? Another consensus 4-star recruit. This guy's a top 105 prospect on all 3 major recruiting services. He's a linebacker from Florida. You know we love our linebackers from Florida. We're talking Jordan Campbell. He's currently committed to Miami. Coach Rhule and Butler were visiting him in high school or at his home. I can't remember which, for a visit like a week or 2 ago. And they got to convince him to come up for a visit. They did that. On 3 has him ranked 65th nationally. Rivals 51st. And 247, 102nd. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. Nebraska's Florida connections with Phil Simpson on staff, with Vincent Shavers, Willis McGahee, Ja'Cory Barney, to name a few, Amari Sanders, to name another. They have legit connections with coaches and players. And don't forget Addison Williams, DB coach coming over from UCF. He's been recruiting Campbell. These guys have, this team, this coaching staff has ties to Florida. If Nebraska can flip Jordan, and it may take a week, it may take another 10 months. It may take 11 months. It may be a last-minute flip. This guy is a legit prospect. They're also bringing in Kason Thomas. He's a 3-star, 6'1", 190. He has your regional Big 10, Big 12 offers, which is pretty standard. Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan State, Wisconsin, etc., etc. Jace Reynolds, local product from Elkhorn North, is visiting as well. Depending on the service, he's not ranked or a 3-star. He has 2 offers right now, Nebraska and Kansas State. He's 6'2", 190. I would not be shocked if either Kason Thomas and or Jace Reynolds committed this weekend. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think Jace would be the more likely because he's a local product. But either one wouldn't shock me. And for both of them, they need to add 30 pounds before they even see the field. They are so small. 190 pounds as an outside linebacker is tiny. They need to be 220 before they see the field. The good thing is they have their entire senior year to gain weight and their entire freshman year to gain weight. At defensive back, Nebraska's bringing in a Florida commit, Devin Jackson. He's probably a safety prospect. He's a 3-star on 247 and on 3 and a 4-star on Rivals. Really good size. He could be a rover too, potentially. He's 6'2", 190. He has major SEC and ACC offers, Florida, Georgia, LSU, etc. Getting him in this weekend with a flip opportunity, another Florida guy. Nebraska is putting themselves in position very well for these Florida kids. They also have Danny Odom coming in. He's probably a true corner. He's 6'1", 160 pounds. He's teammates with Obo, who's visiting this weekend. They're visiting together. He's 6'1", 160 pounds, so a little light. But again, I mean, you got plenty of time to add the weight you need. Really good offer list, though. Mainly SEC and ACC schools. Florida, Florida State, Miami, Arkansas, Penn State, Nebraska. And that North Carolina offer carries a little more weight now just because Bill Belichick is the head coach. Nebraska's also bringing in Dominic Turnbull. Depending on your service, 3 or 4-star. Rivals has him as a 4-star, on 3 as a 3-star, and 247 hasn't even ranked him yet. Good size for a corner. Same thing as Odom, though, needs to add a little weight. He's 165 pounds at 6'2". Plenty of time to add the weight. His offer list is really good, though, and this is another Florida kid, I believe. He's got Florida, Michigan, Miami, USC, Ole Miss, Pitt, and Louisville. And then our last visitor is Jacob Eberhardt. He's an athlete, but Nebraska likes him as a safety or potentially a rover position as well. 6'1", 210 pounds. He's a 3-star on On3 and 247. Rivals hasn't ranked him yet. Pretty good offer list, though. Nebraska, Mizzou, Illinois, Penn State, Tennessee, Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera. So that is all of your visitors that have confirmed visiting this weekend. This list is subject to change. We could see 2 or 3 guys fall off. You could see 2 or 3 guys be added on. Anything can change. They're not even showing up until, I think, tomorrow, Friday the 31st, or at the latest, February 1st, which is Saturday. So we'll kind of keep tabs on this list as we go on. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, which is at cornhuskerhuddl, because I will have all your updates like instantly, or as soon as I find out. I'll have your updates. I'll have them posted for you. So your breaking news will be on my Twitter account. So make sure you're following me on my Twitter account. That's all I've got for today's episode. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Who of these prospects are you the most excited about? Is there any of these prospects you would like for me to do a film review on? And then if you could, do me a huge favor, like my video, comment, share it, subscribe to the channel. That helps me out substantially. Thank you for joining me today, and welcome in to the Cornhusker Huddle.